Hey, everybody. Hi, people in viewing land. Hello, hello, Clydette in the front row. We see you.
Hi, Clydette.
Hey, hi, Sandal.
Hi, Sandal.
Hello, all our lovely lovelies. Please, as usual, please drop your name and tell us that you're here so that we know that you're here. If you are a writer and a parent, click like so that we know that you're out there. And also, quick thank yous to Winona David Harris. Thank you for coming again. Kayla and who else? Celestino and Wendy and Jacqueline and Edith and Demario and all the other people that left us some little donations when they bought their tickets. Thank you so much for doing that. Look, it's Clydette.
Andrew.
And hey, Drew, hi. And so we have a great show. We are super duper excited. We should probably jump right in. Oh, thank you to Niska. Niska, you're amazing. We appreciate your generous support. Also, the Grote Foundation, you're the best. We love you. This is actually.
What would we do without you?
All right. And then and the Writers Room. So the Writers Room is our sponsor for this season, the whole season. So we are very grateful to them. But I have to tell you about today. So tonight we are going to be presenting the new Parentis, the 2025 Parentis Writing Fellows winning work. You're going to meet our new Parentis Writing Fellow, and it's going to be presented by last year's Parentis Writing Fellow, which we are going to get started on that right away because it's very exciting. So first of all, we are going to tell you that Hi, I'm Mildred Vo, and this is Christina Chiu. And we're both award-winning authors, so you can't tell because today I'm kind of crazy apparently. But we do have a good show. And Christina is going to start by introducing quickly the authors that we are going to be presenting later in a minute. Go.
Wonderful. We have 4 authors today, and we have our winner. So our authors are Cari Luna. She's a novelist and the recipient of the Ken Casey Award for Fiction. Her work has appeared in The Nation, Guernica, Salon, Jacobin, Electric Literature, Catapult, Pank, and elsewhere. Hello, Cari.
Hi, Cari. Welcome back.
Thank you very much.
Our next author is Stephen O'Connor. He's the author of 6 books. His stories have appeared in The New Yorker, Harper's, Best American Short Stories, Conjunctions, The New England Review, and The Quarterly. Everyone, hello to Stephen.
Welcome back, Stephen.
Our third author will be Jennifer Case. She's the author of 2 books. Her work has appeared in Orion, North American Review, Prairie Schooner, and Michigan Quarterly Review. She is the recipient of the Breadloaf Bakeless Scholarship and Stone Canoe's 2014 Alan Neriel Gelson Prize in Fiction. Our final, hello, Jennifer. Our final reader will be Jessica Pearce Rotondi. She's the author of What We Inherit. It's a secret war and a family search for answers. It's her true story of her family's 36-year search to bring a missing son home from the CIA-led war in Laos.
So exciting.
Everyone, please
guys.
welcome our amazing authors. Hello.
Yeah. And the topic is?
The topic is the politics of parenthood.
So don't go anywhere.
Don't go anywhere.
So tonight, we are going to be presenting our Parentis Writing Fellow. And Parentis awards an annual prize to a single writer who wins a blind competition with a piece of writing under 1,000 words. Each year, we change the word count so that it is fresh writing. We want to incentivize the writing of new work at the hardest, sort of most challenging time of your parenting career, which is when your kids are littles. And so we have this competition. It's open from March 1st to April 17th every year. We change the word count, and you can write absolutely anything in the world. So this year, we are going to be presenting that winner. And I'll just tell you that our third place winner this year was Esther Lynn Dowell, and our second place winner was Lindsay Savino Smith. So congratulations to
Amazing
them.
work out there.
Yes, amazing work, amazing work. And thanks to the generosity of the DeGroat Foundation, all of our prizes were doubled last year, so everybody gets twice as much money as before. And they, of course, also also the top 3 winners also get a year of Parentis mentorship. They get to be part of our cycle support, which is small groups that help you get accountability to your longer work. So you kind of break everything down into smaller chunks, and then you get things done. And you develop a group that is really quite supportive and commiserates with you, but also just basically there to tell you, keep writing, we got you, and it's a very exciting time. So let's bring on last year's fellow and hear all about what she did this year. So to present the award and to present the letter is Taylor Hobbs. Christina, you have her bio?
Yes. Everyone, welcome Taylor Hobbs. She lives in the Pacific Northwest with her husband and 2 small children. She's got 2 novels, Cloaked and Sonder Village. Her first ever short story, Contingency Daughter, won her the 2024 Parentis Writing Fellowship. Over the last year as a fellow, she's expanded the story into a YA novel titled What I Would Do for You. She's now represented by Michela Whatnall of Disto. Is that how you say it? Godrich and Barrett Literary Agency. Recently, she also had an article in Warhorse Magazine and a short story in 101words.org. Everyone, Taylor Hobbs.
Taylor! And Taylor is going to present our letter to our winner. And our winner this year is Helen Spencer. Everybody, yay, Helen! Helen! Helen, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. I feel incredibly privileged to be here, so thank you, everyone. I live on Long Island in New York. I work in technology, actually. Creative writing is a side thing for me for now. But I have a little daughter who's 2 years old, so to Milda's comments about the hard time to write, I'm in the thick of it right now, so thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Yay, take it away, Taylor.
Helen, I'm so glad that you're here. Congratulations on becoming the 2025 Parentis Fellow. I can confidently say that this is just the beginning of a brand new chapter for you. This fellowship changed my life, not only with the community and support I received, but simply the validation. To say that it's been a mindset shift is an understatement. Winning the award and the prize money was great. And I love telling people that I was the 2024 fellow, but the most important part was that the fact that during my moments of self-doubt and internal criticism this past year, I could think back and remember that people actually cared what I had to say. You'll come to find that this realization is the biggest gift. It gave me the courage this year to write about parts of my life that I'd been too scared to explore, and found that those are the stories that people are most eager to hear. My year as the fellow entwined my life and my art, and I feel like I'm becoming who I was always meant to be. You've already accomplished so much with your first publication. It's just amazing. My wish for you this year is to let the fellowship unlock all your doors, both internal and external, and walk through them with the confidence that we are here, we are reading, and we care about what you have to say next. So congratulations. I'm really happy for you.
Thank you.
And here I'm going to present you this award. Take it away, take it away. Yay!
I could have done better with that, sorry. Thank you, Taylor.
So Helen, congratulations. And now we would like Helen to please read her winning story.
Sure.
Helen?
My piece is called Mixing Bowls. Out of breath after climbing 3 flights of stairs to her new apartment, she muscled her way in the door and set down her heavy shopping bags. The apartment was completely empty, aside from a few stacks of boxes against the living room wall. She was careful in the move to take only the few belongings she felt sure she could call hers, not his, not ours. With only 3 hours to unpack before daycare pickup, she hastily grabbed a box labeled kitchen and stuff, sat on the floor, and sliced the box open with a key. Here she found kitchen items from her old studio apartment on Joralemon Street in Brooklyn Heights. Living there had been a free and hopeful time in her life. She was single, rising fast in her career, and had a tight network of city-dwelling friends who had not yet flocked to the burbs to start their real lives. In these years, she would venture out on Saturday mornings after a long week of travel with her demanding job. She would grab a latte at her favorite coffee shop and wander in and out of bookstores, boutiques, and her favorite family-owned cooking supply store on Atlantic Avenue. Among the treasures she purchased there was a stack of ceramic nested mixing bowls. She lifted the brightly colored bowls out of the box and reflected on the one that was missing. The largest bowl in the set was a pretty shade of blue, and it had been her favorite. She winced, remembering how it had broken into 30 pieces after her husband angrily hurled it down the basement stairs of the home they had once shared. She could still hear the initial crack and then the scatter of all the small pieces, some of which she was still finding and cleaning up 3 months later. She couldn't remember what had set him off that day, what she had or hadn't said or done. A lot of the memories of her marriage were like that, like clicking through a viewfinder, jumping from still frame to still frame. Discrete moments were crystal clear, but the chain of the events connecting them was hard to piece together. Her decision to leave had been reached after dozens of instances of shattered glasses, cracked tables, dented car doors, punched walls. His yelling, her bruising, their child's cries. She couldn't change the past. She couldn't change her husband. She was unsure of how to change herself. For now, she could only unpack one box at a time, attempting to create a new order from all the chaos. She carried the stack of mixing bowls to the kitchen and placed them gently on the shelf. The rest of her cabinets were empty, but there was a piece of that girl from Joralemon Street back down from the attic. And that was a start.
Yeah. So great. Well, Helen, we are very, very excited to welcome you into the Parentis family. We can't wait to see you in a meetup. We want to see what you do this year. Make sure you add us at Parentis whenever you publish something. We're going to keep close eyes on you. And Taylor, same for you. You just keep doing what you're doing. You're doing great. Ladies, we're going to say goodbye to the two of you. And the rest of us are going to keep on going with the politics of parenthood. Are we ready?
Good luck and see you soon.
Good luck. All right.
Wonderful.
Here you are, Cari.
Yeah.
Cari.
Our first reader.
That was abrupt.
Woo! We win. Also, hi to everybody out there. I love that they're like having conversation. Are you guys noticing? They're like having conversations with each other. They're discussing some place called the Pink House out on Plum Island. And they're like, oh, my book is right there, blah, 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 blah. I love it when the audience chats with each other. All right. And also, hi, Sandel. I don't think you heard us the first time. So hi. And Clyde. All right. Let's go, Cari.
All right. Well.
All right. Cari Luna is the author of The Revolution of Every Day, which won the Ken Casey Award for Fiction. She's an amazing person, an amazing writer. A fellow of Yaddo and Ragdale, her writings appeared in The Nation, Guernica, Salon, Jacobin Electric Literature, and others. And you are so lucky to be hearing her tonight. Everyone, Cari Luna.
Thank you very much. So I had one reading that I was going to do as of last Monday, and then as of a week ago, I changed what I was going to be reading. So this is a very short segment of a novel that I wrote during the first Trump presidency about the rise of fascism. It's told through the lens of the beginning of the Spanish Civil War, and the Federico who is referenced is Federico Garcia Lorca. There's content warning if you need it, extreme fascist violence in this piece. There's the buzz of voices in the air, and as Federico reaches the plaza, that buzz clarifies into shouting and soldiers' bodies in formation. And with them, civil guards, and with them, assault guards, and with them, the police. Some of them on horseback, some of them standing with rifles in hand. They fill the north end of the plaza. They shout, "Arriba España," and what they mean is up with the old Spain, the dying Spain viciously revived. Up with the closed eyes, the covered ears, up with ignorance and oppression and hate. And across the plaza from the soldiers, a crowd of workers stand shoulder to shoulder. A man, tall and dark, lifts his fist into the air and shouts, "Viva la República!" And all around him, the crowd shouts, "Que viva!" The man shouts, "Viva el pueblo!" And the people cry, "Que viva! Que viva!" A young woman rushes from the heart of the crowd into the center of the plaza and faces down the soldiers and the guards and the police and the stamping horses. She holds a clenched fist in the air. "Viva la República!" she cries out. "Viva el pueblo!" She tosses back her hair and stands strong, shoulders back, head up. The soldiers open fire. Dear God, they fire and the girl collapses, and then they're charging forward. The soldiers and the horses advancing, and her small, brave body is lost beneath their feet. And they're firing into the crowds of people, and the people are running, screaming, falling. Federico stumbles backward, grabbing for the wall, scuttling like an insect. People rush past him, but others are holding their ground. "Arriba España!" And a few remaining voices, weaker now. "Viva la República! Viva el pueblo!" And then gunshots. Federico flees in nightmare slow motion from the stench of gunpowder and the soft thuds of bodies falling. Just ahead of him, in a little alleyway, a door opens, and a man is dragged from a building by 3 thugs in blue phalange shirts, a woman chasing after, tugging at the men's arms, pleading with them. They shove her aside, and one of the thugs raises his arm, his face twisted and ugly, a pistol black in his fist, and he shoots the man in the head. And then an explosion of red, the man's body collapsing, empty. Federico is less than a meter from them, but the fascists don't see him or don't care that he is seen. They turn and run in the other direction, leaving Federico and the woman alive. She falls, sobbing, over the man's body. Thank you.
Thank you, Cari. Usually I ask questions immediately after each author, but just in the interest of time, I'm going to save my questions for the end after everyone's read. So our next reader will be Stephen O'Connor. Thank you, Cari.
Thank you.
Will be Stephen O'Connor. He's the author of Quasimodo, a poetry collection. Thomas Jefferson Dreams of Sally Hemings. It's a novel. 2 short story collections, Here Comes Another Lesson and Rescue. And also 2 works of nonfiction. If he's just writing nonstop, just writing constantly. Like he's writing right now. He's published more than 50 short stories in places like the New Yorker, Harper's, Best American Short Stories, Conjunctions, the New England Review, and others. His poems have also appeared everywhere, Agni, the Beloit Poetry Journal, and Conjunctions. His nonfiction, too, has been in the New York Times, The Nation, Agni, the Boston Globe. He lives in New York City, has 3 grown children, and is also a grandfather. Everyone say hello to our dear Stephen O'Connor.
Hello, Stephen.
Thank you so much. That was a lovely introduction, and I'm glad to be following Cari, because I too have been writing. I've been working on a novel for the last 8 years, which I started when Trump was running last time, and it too is about the rise of fascism. And I'm going to read a short scene from it in which it's about it's called We Want So Much to Be Ourselves, and it's about an Aryan psychoanalyst and his Jewish wife in Nazi Germany. The scene I'm going to read takes place on May 8th in 1932, and Gunther Zeitz, who is the psychoanalyst, is sitting in the Berlin State Opera House waiting for the Rosenkavalier to begin. He originally bought the tickets as a birthday gift for his wife, but she was called away on a family emergency. So he has taken his 5-year-old daughter, Hannah, to the opera in his wife's place, and they've been watching this elegant audience arrive for the last 10 minutes. So you'll see its connection to fascism. Now Gunther is presented with the complex task of getting an overexcited 5-year-old to behave, but without provoking her to tears or righteous fury. "Oh, look," he says, "one of the singers just peeked out from behind the curtain. The opera's about to begin." In fact, no one has peeked out from behind the curtain, but the stratagem has its desired effect. Hannah turns around and sits down in her chair. If Gunther can distract her by talking, perhaps she will stay in her seat and be calm enough to watch the opera. Everyone is going to be jealous that you've seen the Rosenkavalier. I'm sure none of your friends have been to the opera. I bet even Fräulein Goretzky, who's Hannah's teacher, hasn't been to the opera. Hannah looks up at him with her large green eyes and says, I don't want to go to school anymore. What? He exclaims. Don't be silly. What would you do if you didn't go to school? But then he notices the unusual seriousness of her gaze and the melancholy pucker of her rosy lips. Why don't you want to go to school? Am I a Jew? She asks. A falsely mirthful expression of surprise comes onto his face. Why are you asking such a question? Fräulein Goretzky says I'm a Jew. Well, Fräulein Goretzky is a ridiculous person. Gunther Hannah takes this assertion in, but Gunther is not sure whether it comforts or disturbs her. In fact, he tells her, you're not any religion. It is true that Mama's mother and father are Jews, and my mother and father are Christians, but Mama and I don't believe in God or in religion. So we're not anything, and you're not anything either. Am I Catholic? No, he says. But if you want to be Catholic when you grow up, you can do that. Or you can be Protestant. Oma is Protestant and Opa is Catholic. Or you can be Jewish like Mama's parents. Or you can be just nothing like us. I don't want to be Jewish. Why not? Because the Jews have to wait on the end of the line at lunchtime. Just as Hannah is making this statement, the lights in the theater dim and the audience goes quiet. Hannah sits up in her seat with her hands folded in her lap. Halfway through the overture, she leans her head against Gunther's ribs. Not long afterwards, her head lolls forward, then jerks back up. By the end of the overture, she is fast asleep and doesn't awake until the lights come on again. Gunther himself only half listens to the opera, as his thoughts circle again and again to what Hannah has just told him. If Fräulein Goretzky really is making the Jewish students wait until the Christians have been served before getting their lunch, he is going to have to give her a strict talking to. It is not tolerable that the platitudes of heinous politicians should be given credence in the classroom. And how is it that Fräulein Goretzky even knows that Hannah is Jewish or half Jewish? Has somebody told her? Why would anybody say such a thing? As soon as this question comes to mind, Gunther realizes it is the wrong one. The real question is, how could so many apparently intelligent people have buckled under to the rhetoric of such a heinous thug? A question that evokes no response apart from an unsettling amalgam of contempt, incredulity, and terror. In the middle of Sophie and Octavian's final love duet, he feels his whole life collapsing. Okay, that's it.
Thank you, Stephen. It's so interesting, when we put together these themes, we put them together like in about a year or a year and a half before the actual event, and it's so interesting to me that that we have these beautiful pieces that resonate so much right now. Thank you for reading. We will move on for a moment to Jennifer Case. Her work has appeared in journals such as the Orion, North American Review, Prairie Schooner. She's the recipient of the Breadloaf Bakeless Scholarship and Stone Canoe's 2014 Allen and Nerald Galson Prize in Fiction. Like I said, she's the author of 2 books, We Are Animals, on the nature and politics of motherhood, and Sawbill, A Search for Place. Jennifer serves as assistant nonfiction editor at terrain.org and is the supervising editor of Arcana. She lives in Central Arkansas with her family. And if you have interest in speaking to this editor, definitely reach out. Everyone, please welcome Jennifer Case.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm going to read just the first 2 pages of one of the essays in my most recent book, We Are Animals, on the nature and politics of motherhood. And I'm going to read the first 2 pages of the essay called A Political Pregnancy. The spring that Trump wins the Republican primary, I discover I am pregnant with my second child. The pregnancy is unintended, a surprise. A month after I tell my husband I want to stop at 1 child, my urine on a stick reveals 2 blue lines. My reaction isn't joy. I am deeply conflicted. But when I mention potentially terminating the pregnancy, my husband walks out of the room, refusing to discuss it. Donald Trump. When you're a star, they let you do it. You can do anything. Grab them by the pussy. You can do anything. I don't know what to do. Earlier that winter, when we were still debating a second child, my husband had leaned against the wall and said his purpose was to be a father. He wanted to volunteer as a troop leader and serve on the school PTO. He wanted clambering and laughter in a house ringing with children's voices. As he spoke, his face had opened, a small, trembling truth, and the fact that I no longer wanted a second child snared the space between us so that it was me holding him back, me stopping him from fulfilling his vocation, me the barrier between him and his life's fulfillment. And I thought, this could break us. This here is the moment that could break us. And that's what I think again in the days after I pee on the stick and my body has betrayed me. And I wonder if I can be the person who says no, who carves out of her body the child he wants, who commits an act that, in my husband's mind, will only ever be a sin. I begin to lie on the couch and hold my breath against nausea. I stare at our family photo hung on the opposite wall. In the photo, my daughter is 4 months old. She looks up at me, mouth open, while I prop her baby body with my hand. My husband leans over us both. I inventory the belongings that fill our rented duplex, the books and mementos and matching t-shirts and coffee mugs, the rubber tubs of baby clothes left over from our daughter. A wave of nausea passes over me, metallic saliva. I reach for a cracker and shut my eyes to the world. In the evenings, when I say, I wish this weren't happening, I wish I weren't pregnant, my husband says, I know, or he says nothing, or he rubs my back until I am silent and spent. When I say, I'm not excited for this child, he says, I'll be excited for both of us. And something inside of me shrivels and cracks, because what does that mean for him to be excited enough for both of us, for me to become the body carrying a child others want? I do not want to be pregnant, but I don't want to hurt my husband. And since I can't not have the child without hurting my husband, the pregnancy continues. Donald Trump. It must be a pretty picture, you dropping to your knees. And I'll stop there.
Thank you, Jennifer. That was incredible.
I want to read the rest of the essay.
Yeah, I know. All of these pieces, it's like, oh my God, I need to know more. Thank you so much. We will talk more about this for sure. Thank you so much. Our next reader is Jessica Pearce Rotondi. She's the author of What We Inherit, A Secret War and a Family Search for Answers, the true story of her family's 36-year search to bring a missing son home from the CIA-led war in Laos. Salman Rushdie called it exceptional, and the Oprah magazine named it a best book of summer 2020. Her work has been published by the History Channel, Reader's Digest, the Boston Globe, and others. She's the chair of Legacies Library at Legacies of War and the recipient of the 2024 Poet and Author Fellowship from the Martha's Vineyard Creative Writing Institute. She lives outside of New York City with her partner and 2 young sons. Everyone, please welcome Jessica Pearce Rotondi.
Thank you so much. And Christina, it's great to see you again. We were actually in another group for authors whose books came out in 2020. Another wild.
Weren't we lucky? Woo!
Really know how to time things. Speaking of timing and family planning and all of that. This is from the very beginning of my book, What We Inherit. Not to be a downer, but it's the day my mom dies and I walk into her closet and discover she has this entire secret political life that I never knew existed. I head for the bedroom where my mother spent the last summer of her life and swing open the door. The indent of Mom's head is still pressed into the pillow. A few silver hairs float up like dandelion bracts in the stale air, vibrating with my breath. Books are stacked along the floor on her side of the bed, the contents of all the packages I sent that she will never read. I step over the books and reach for the closet door. When I flip the switch, the shadows flee from Mom's dresses, their emptiness more pronounced in the harsh light. I run my hands over her things, the sheets of thin dry cleaner's plastic clinging to my arms, like I clung to hers only hours earlier. I reach for Mom's red coat at the back of the closet, and my hand bumps up against something hard. Pulling aside her silk blouses and creased wool pants, I uncover an old filing cabinet shoved up against the wall. The shelves rock, but don't budge when I middle of the cabinet's top drawer. I tug harder, knuckles whitening, knocking her coat to the floor. When the drawer finally jerks open, it's easy to see why it had been stuck shut. It is filled to bursting with newspaper clippings. I pull out a stack and see my grandparents' faces over and over, headlines screaming for their son. Gulag 17 survivor wages 10-year battle to learn fate of MIA son. Families work with belief that MIAs are still alive in Asia. Milford man goes to Laos in search of missing son. Trooper presses mission to find lost son in Laos. There are quotes from Mom in these pages, photos of her holding signs about her missing brother as she marches on Washington. How had I never seen these before? My fingers shake as I put the newspaper clippings aside and reach into the drawer again, pulling up a thick scrapbook. Inside, its pages are filled with headshots of young men with stiff Air Force hats clamped to their heads, their newly buzzed hair just visible above formal collars. Some gaze at the camera confidently, their broad shoulders filling the frame, while others appear too young for the uniforms buttoned tightly around their necks. Under every face is the exhortation, "Where is he?" My Uncle Jack's face is on page 3. I've only ever seen 2 photos of Jack in my entire life. I know exactly that number of things about him. That, like his father, he joined the Air Force and was shot down. He was named after his father, and the only difference was that Jack never came home. Page after page of heavily censored documents bear my uncle's name. I spread them out across the floor, shoving Mom's shoes aside in the process. The pages are covered in CIA stamps and tantalizing black bars as thick as the silence between Mom and me when it came to her missing brother. You can actually see one of the documents in the book. The whole thing is basically just censored. The closest I thought I'd been to the CIA was watching spy movies on TV. I never dreamed that there was a stash of declassified files in my childhood home. But it's the next piece of paper that challenges everything I thought I knew about the woman who raised me. 30th of April, 1977. President Carter, White House. Dear President Carter, I'm writing to you about a very serious personal matter which you have the power to alter if you so choose. Since March 29, 1972, I have worked to discover what has happened to my brother, Jack Pearce. It was on that date that the AC-130 he was flying in was shot down over Laos. Besides the fact that no one cannot give up hope where a loved one is concerned, I have reason to believe that my brother is still alive through concrete evidence. The accompanying planes heard beeper signals coming from the ground that night. This serves to prove that someone survived the crash. Unfortunately, due to political matters, it's been impossible to access the crash site since that time. I took matters into my own hands, sir. I traveled to Paris to speak to officials at the Vietnamese and Laotian embassies concerning my brother's fate. And she goes on from there. The ambassador stressed that no MIA information will be released to the United States until our country proved friendly. I countered with the fact that the MIA Commission's recent trip to Vientiane should prove our country's willingness to be friendly. It was then that I was told, while overtly we attempt to establish friendly relations with the new Lao government, our CIA is undermining it with violent, covert activities originating from Thailand. If this is the case, President, any hope for Americans being held in Laos being humanely released is considerably lessened, if not completely destroyed. This hypocritical action only serves to annihilate American credibility in the diplomatic arena. I urge you to take and suspend all such activities if they do in fact take place. Thank you. Sincerely, Linda Pearce. I had no idea my mother went to Paris at 22 to meet with ambassadors or that she wrote to presidents. The correspondence in front of me continues into the 1990s, the years she was tacking my childish artwork up on the wall and changing my sister's diapers. I kneel in my dead mother's closet, surrounded by letters about the brother she never talked about and questions the living can answer.
I want to know more. What happened? What happened?
So much.
What happened? Wonderful. Thank you so much, Jessica. So Milda, do you have a question, or can I start?
If you want to start, I'm just waiting for everybody to get all, like that. Magic. I just want to shout out to Mei, who's our producer. She's really good.
Thank you,
We couldn't
Mei.
do this without her. Yeah. So just real quick, just so that we have a baseline of like what we're talking to and about. I know, Stephen, you already said that you have older kids and grandkids. Can everybody just real quick just say how old your kids are? You can say in like terms of decades, or you can say how old they are exactly, just so that we have some clue as to like what kind of parents we're dealing with here. Mine are 22 and 18. So
1 and 3.
Sorry, 1 and 3 babies.
31 and 42, amazingly. I can't believe it.
Established parent.
Mine are 7 and 11.
Nice.
18 and 14.
Okay, great. So we have a little bit of everybody here. So that's a really good baseline. Yeah, go ahead, Christina.
Okay, so let's get back to the topic at hand here, politics of parenthood. Now, I know, Cari, you said you changed what you were going to read like about a week ago, you said. So everything was kind of a surprise. I don't know, for me anyway. And I wasn't expecting, I don't know, my idea of this salon kind of shifted as quickly as the earth shifted. And so what drew you to this salon? Let's start with Cari. What drew you to this particular salon rather than others? And how have what you've written or chosen for tonight, how has changed, and why? How does your writing resonate with you at this moment?
Sure. I mean, in terms of how I chose the salon, you said, do you want to read? And I said, sure, October and November would be fine. I mean, this was like six or 7 months ago. That's how the sausage gets made.
Oh, I must have thought, oh God, this will be a good salon for you.
I mean, it's a good fit. A lot of my writing is political, but I primarily write novels, and I've got two manuscripts that deal with parenthood, and I've got several that deal with politics. I do not have any that address the politics of parenting. So before Election Day, I was like, well, let me just read something from a book that's got a kid in it. And then after Election Day, I was like, no, we're going to go with the fascism, because it felt more honest in the moment to address what we're facing head on, given the topic of tonight.
How about you, Stephen?
Well, you gave me a choice of two, and I chose the politics of parenthood, partly because I knew I had some scenes. My novel follows. It begins in 1924 and it ends, well, it goes through the Third Reich until around 1943, and then it sort of leaps ahead into the future. But in any event, it sort of tracks the evolution of fascism in Germany, and it's one of those sort of frog in the pot with the water getting hotter situations. So it gets worse and worse and worse. And I knew that I had this scene where my protagonist is talking to his daughter, and it's really then that he begins to realize how much the stuff that he hasn't really taken as seriously as he should is beginning to affect his life. And he hates the fascists. He always has, but he never took them really seriously. He thought, Hitler was a buffoon. He's ridiculous. He barks like a dog when he gives speeches. No one's going to take him seriously. And then, lo and behold, things changed, and obviously that seemed significant to me in this period. And I actually started it in 2016 before Trump was running. But in any event, I was very frightened by him then. But I
remember that. Yeah.
I never real expected that.
It's interesting that you use the child as the catalyst for a person taking things seriously. It is extraordinary, really, how clear, because you have to speak so clearly to a child, and to explain something, you must explain it in a way that a child will understand. And it's so interesting how that clarity makes us see whatever we are explaining. Like
Right.
when you have to explain something to a 5-year-old, it's like, oh, this is how banks work. You're like, oh, this is crazy. Like, like, why does this work? But it's very interesting when you bring it down to a child's level.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, the child plays a relatively minor role. She's important, and she gets more important as the book goes on, as she gets older. But he works at the Berlin Psychoanalytic Institute, which is taken over by Matthias Goering, who was Hermann Goering's cousin. And Hermann Goering, everybody thought that the Jewish science would disappear from Germany, but no, Hermann Goering funded it enormously. He made much, much more money once all the Jewish analysts were out. And so my protagonist is struggling with that environment, even though most of the people in the institute are anti-Nazi. Fundamentally, it's been incorporated into the Nazi effort. And so there's this moral dilemma that I think is really interesting. And alas, I really hope not something we're all going to be struggling with here, but could happen. It's made me a little bit more paranoid right now than I perhaps would have been.
Jenny, how about you?
Why this theme? Well, my book is a collection of essays that largely builds off of my second pregnancy, which was, as the excerpt explored, unintended during the 2016-2017 period. So politics and kind of the cultural conversations we were having were kind of mapped right onto my personal experiences. And the book was me trying to unpack and understand that. And it's also very much about how policies affect childbirth, right, and motherhood. And that's only gotten ratcheted up even more, of course, with the fall of Roe v. Wade and with Dobbs and all of our current conversations. So it was a perfect fit for this book.
Wonderful. And finally,
I actually switched what I was going to read as well. It seems to be maybe a theme for tonight. I was originally planning on reading something from my work in progress, which is about a mother and daughter living in isolation off the coast of New England when a hurricane is coming. So it takes on global warming, what we owe our neighbors as a community when disaster strikes. But I mean, it's still very relevant because global warming is something I'm deeply concerned about for my children. After the election, the morning after, I was feeling a little sad. And my son's like, "Mommy, what's wrong? What's wrong?" And I started to think in my head, how am I going to explain this? He's 3, the 1-year-old that's like spooning oatmeal in his mouth. And I had this flashback to my experience with my mother. Like, my mom died rather than share her politics with me, in some sense, to protect me. But she grew up in a family that was deeply political. Her father, my grandfather, was at the front of every Memorial Day, Veterans Day parade, waving the American flag as a POW of the Nazis who survived imprisonment to come home and raise a military family. 3 of my mom's 5 siblings went into the military. She did not. Because she was a woman, which is both something that set her apart from her siblings, but also gave her this onus of responsibility. She spent every weekend with my grandparents marching on Washington, protesting in New York. And I asked myself so many times why she didn't share that part of her life with me. But it seems in the research process, that anger and that deep involvement did take away somewhat of her childhood, some of her joyous years. I mean, she got married a couple months after her brother was declared dead, according to the military. So there was a lot of moments where politics overshadowed her life as well. I identify deeply with what Jennifer was saying. So for me, I'd love to actually ask the other participants, how do you talk to your children at different ages and stages about what's going on the national stage?
That's a really good question.
That's such a great
take
question.
it and we're gonna ask them. We can go in like kind of age function. So Jenny, you want to go next and just answer her question? That's a really nice segue. Nice.
Oh, that's such a question that we just keep having to work through year by year, issue by issue, right? I live in Arkansas. I think I'm the only one here that lives in the South, so I'm in a fairly culturally conservative area. And I also am worried about climate change. I'm worried about social justice. I talk a lot about environment and social justice with my kids, but those aren't always what they hear at school. So we've often had to have conversations where they come home and they're hearing very different things at school and they're asking why, right? And managing to describe, my personal values and beliefs to them in a way that isn't too biased, but also in a way that gives them space to have friendships with people who are very different from them, and not feel ostracized or alienated. That's become our challenge recently and in the past couple of years. So I don't know. My attempt is just to be honest, but not to tell them so much that they feel overwhelmed, right? I don't want my children at their ages to feel hopeless or despairing, and I don't want them to grow up in an environment where they aren't learning how to get along with others to the best of their ability.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cari, how did you address large topics like this with your now teens?
Well, as they were growing up, you got to do it in an age appropriate way. But so 2016, my kids were, I've got to do math in public. My kids were younger than they are now. And they're 18 and 14 now.
Yeah, we use our words here.
And so we live in Portland, Oregon. So it wasn't a question of our family's ethics and politics being out of step with the community around us. But it was a matter of talking. They were hearing things. They were scared. It's a matter of talking about what we can do, how we can keep them and each other safe by being part of our community, by supporting our community. I would bring them to age-appropriate actions, protests. I brought them to organizing meetings where it was appropriate. So they were growing up in an environment of understanding that even when things were like scary and bad in the big picture, they weren't powerless. There were things that you could do locally to try and make things better.
Did you have any situation? I'm sorry.
And also that they're not isolated, that there are other people who have the same values and beliefs as you.
On that same isolation thing, I'm wondering if you had any opportunity to address something like what Jenny was saying with like teaching them to embrace maybe people who don't agree with them somehow, or to be able to at least have a conversation without just yelling at each other. Was there?
That probably would have been a great thing to do, but we
well, you were in Portland, so there wasn't anybody around that you could have.
And my family, all of our families back east in New York and New Jersey, and we don't have anybody like that in our lives.
Interesting.
We just don't, and it didn't come up. I'll send them to Jenny, maybe.
Yeah.
Well, it's so funny because the day after your election, I have a kid he's 13. He's got ADHD. Like, homework does not get turned in. Like, it's sort of like, what do you mean? It was you asked for an extension and it's a month later and you got a D. Like what? Like, and the day after the election, I was like, I just got so infuriated. I was already frustrated, but I was like, wake up. Like, it's not yesterday. Today is a whole new world. And I didn't want to freak him out, but I was like, he depends on ACA. And I was like, unless you're able to have the education you need to be able to figure these things out and make it possible to get certain medical supplies, like, you're not going to have them. So get your shit together. And then I felt like, can I be saying that? Like, like maybe that's not the best thing to do, but I just couldn't help it.
Let's ask our established parent. I like this terminology of emerging and established parent. Look, it's a baby. Hello, child.
Say hi, Kenneth. This is my
Welcome to-
3-year-old.
Welcome to our conversation about you
You
behind your
should be in
back.
bed, my love.
Yes.
Okay, we're gonna meet everyone. I'm so sorry.
So it's
Stephen?
interesting listening to these conversations because, of course, I realize how things have changed over time. I mean, where we live in Manhattan, we don't have any friends. I mean, I don't know anybody who has a voted for Trump. I mean, it's just unimaginable. And so we never had that kind of thing of having to train our children to
Be nice
handle other opinions delicately. But what the main thing, when we were early on, we just sort of tried to emphasize, sort of the kind of characteristics that would lead toward what, from my point of view, be sensible politics, which is we encourage our children always to think about other kids, what they were going through when they were in school, what's happening to them, why are they doing what they're doing? They're not just bad people. They make you angry. Why are they feeling that way? We were living in a time when New York was actually quite scary. My son in particular was, once, approached twice by homeless men who would sort of use him as a mechanism to manipulate me. And he was very frightened by that when he was little. And one of them hit me in the face, actually. And so it was scary. He had that, but we would try to help them understand what's going on, try to make them feel comfortable, but always try to get them to understand that they had a role in this world, that we all have to try to make things better, and that there are things people are suffering, and we have to help them feel better. And part of that is being politically involved. My son's a musician who actually plays with a band in Portland, but in any event, he lives here in New York. But my daughter was very, very political at a very early age. I mean, she was the first person in the family to support John Cari. And then she led us like these sort of protests at her school. And now she's writing a book about sort of the abortion underground, abortion funds, helping people get abortions. And she spent some time in Arkansas. She's all throughout the South. She's been interviewing people, and she's working on it.
Something that you said before the show started about audience made me want to ask everybody, in our very, very polarized and very binary political system, we have maybe little cause to try to reach across the aisle as authors. Do you think about that when you're writing? And Stephen, you were saying, I'm interested only in talking to the people that basically already agree with me. Like this, I'm writing to them. I'm writing something to either entertain them or educate them or message them or just, have a conversation with them. I'm wondering, how do you feel about that? Like, are you trying to write something that's going to appeal to everybody? Are you trying to reach across the aisle, convince other people of messages that they need to hear? How is this affecting your writing to know that you have a super bifurcated audience out there? How are you dealing? Let's start with Cari.
If somebody supports authoritarianism, supports hate, supports everything that the current GOP stands for, they're not my audience. I got nothing to say to them. I mean, good luck, folks. They wouldn't like my work anyway. I'm interested in talking not just to people who agree with me, but people who maybe aren't engaged politically as well. And people who are still open to thinking about a different perspective than theirs, or to seeing their experiences reflected back to them in a different way. But if somebody's like firmly on the right, I don't care. I'm not talking to them. Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Jessica, how about you?
Diplomatic answer.
Yeah, I would actually say the majority of my readers, I mean, it's maybe more 50-50, tend to come from more conservative backgrounds. I often have a lot of members of military families that have read my book. And I started writing it 10 years ago. So before kind of the specter of Trump was really in a lot of our consciousness, or at least not in mine. And for me, again, like my own this incredible revolution where we went from, a military family that was marching at the front of the parade to picketing the White House. That's a huge transformation in one
Huge.
generation. And I think what I've learned from my mother's papers and letters, my grandmother's bake sale accounts for the money she was trying to raise to get her son back, was the cost of not engaging is too high. And my grandfather never stopped loving his country. He loved it so much that the betrayal was that much deeper. There's some very dark pieces. I actually have his psychiatric records from psychiatry the military was paying for him to see as a former POW, and it's some dark stuff. But for him, he just never gave up hope that it was going to get better. And it was his job to be as loud as possible to get things changed. And in my own work now with Legacies of War, which is Allow American Female-Led Organization, we work with both sides of the aisle to get funding to remove the bombs from Laos, the bombs my uncle was dropping. So I've seen the power that reaching across the aisle can have, as difficult as it can be. In my own family, I think it gave us answers we've been searching for 36 years. And it's my hope that the other military families that are still searching for answers are able to work with no matter what administration comes forward, because there's a lot of people whose stories and needs go beyond that 4-year, that 8-year arc.
You're very passionate. I love how passionate you are about I think it's wonderful. And I'm just wondering if in your passion, do you write things and then have to edit out to make it more like palatable to everybody? Or is it sort of like, you're like, they're going to listen to me because I am coming from a position of truth?
Yeah.
Like
I honestly, I recently did an event that was mainly for a wider conservative audience, for people that were missing family members. And I'm like, I can speak to this on behalf of my organization as the person who's also been part of that family, but is now in kind of this liberal cause. Whereas we do events with the UN or more diverse groups where I'm not the spokesperson that should be out in front. And we have other people that are of the diaspora come forward and speak to their truth and their experience of the bombing. So I think I'm just, even being raised in a family that had divided politics, I'm so hyper aware of self-presentation as a woman, as a white woman, of ways I can either be an ally or maybe say something that the other side might want to hear in a more gentle way. To answer your question, I have many private thoughts and a wonderful private diary, but in my public life, I'm definitely conscious of shifting a lot, sometimes contorting in maybe not the healthiest ways. How's everyone else feeling about this?
Yeah, Jenny?
Well, with this book, I was really interested in speaking into the divide, because I think the divide is false, and we share a lot more than we think we do. And it seems so easy, right, for pro-choice to be pitted against anti-abortion, and for that just to become the conversation, when in reality, everything's in the middle, right? And it's the middle that's messy, where people get stuck and have to grapple through things. And the same is for people who choose to have children versus not having children, right? Or someone who supports C-sections versus someone trying to have an unmedicated birth. It gets so divisive so quickly in a way that leaves women feeling isolated, right? Or struggling to make a choice, or struggling to figure out where they align. And I was really interested in breaking down those divisions with this book and finding out, what is the truth, and what is the truth of human embodied experience, and how can we kind of unpack that cultural, political baggage to find something more grounding.
It's really, I don't know, funny isn't the right word. It's ironic that given the politics have gotten so loud, this topic, when Christina first presented it like a year ago, I was like, oh, so we're going to discuss breastfeeding. We're going to discuss, like you said, unmedicated births. We're going to discuss fathers staying home. Like, this was what I thought of when we were talking about political parenthood. It was like people breaking into factions over what's the right, quote unquote, right way to address a problem. And I wonder if we could find some healing in that as a country, that just as, well, fascism, but apart from killing people, that maybe there can be creative ways to solve problems that do not, for instance, kill people or take away people's rights. Maybe there could be, maybe the problems are interesting and should be addressed, and maybe the problems can be addressed in a different way.
The problems affect us all, right? There is no one group of people that these problems don't affect, right? Maybe if you're super wealthy, you've got a bit of a cushion against some of them, but for the most part, we're all impacted.
Well, I think one of the things that that whether you're a fiction writer or a nonfiction writer, I mean, Jenny, when you were reading, I was thinking like, God, I can feel that. Do you know what I mean? Like, whether you believe it or not, or whatever, you can feel that. You can feel that struggle. And, you know, the conversation, Steve, with the daughter and the father, I mean, it was such a real conversation. I think I mean, maybe that is what people mean about art, like that art
Yeah.
can change how people feel.
Yeah. I was having a conversation with the writers in my group about the fact that art is, you know, it's that same quote that everybody's batting around about how art is now suddenly very important again. And it was interesting because we sort of determined that it was not just that art was important to communicate, which it always is. The artists have the biggest voice, you know, because they're ready to go to prison most of the time for their beliefs. Like they're just like, whatever, I'm going to spray paint it on the side of the wall and that's the way it's going to be, you know? And but also entertainment becomes unbelievably important because we all have a mental overload. We can't listen to it all the time. Sometimes we need something to just take us away. Like, so the entertainment becomes super important. The informational value becomes super important. Writers are such good communicators and we tell the story. And journalists are very important because they tell, you know, hopefully the balanced story, the truth, the research. But it's just really interesting the various means by which writing becomes suddenly super important. And then we were also talking about like how in Soviet, like I went to Soviet Lithuania when it was still Soviet, and artists and theater and writing was all many layered double entendres, many layered, you know, on the surface, this seems like a cute little song about the potato bug, but actually it's sort of very anti-Soviet, you know? And so it's really interesting how much perhaps our writing will matter. You know?
Well, I think, you know, like those moments that resonate with people, like those real moments, right? Like, I frankly am grappling with that. Like when people say, oh, art, you know, I'm just sort of like, really? Because it hasn't, you know? But then, so I have that struggle in me, like, well, really, does art really make a difference? I want to, when I read and I hear your stories, you know, Karen, when you're reading that, like, I'm in that moment. It's real to me, you know, like I can feel it. I'm there and I can understand the human factor, right? That to me can make me understand things better.
Yeah,
Christina,
go ahead.
I'd like to, you know, pick up on something you're saying there, because I think you're saying something really important. And Mildo, you know, when I spoke before, I was actually talking about speaking now in front of the people I can't even see. But in terms of my writing, what I try to do is exactly what you're talking about, Christina. I try to understand people as thoroughly as I can. Not only that, I always have characters who I find repulsive. In my book about Jefferson and Heming, I could hardly bear to be inside the mind of Thomas Jefferson, even though I admire aspects of his character. But as a slaveholder, he was repulsive, and I had to really work hard. And in this novel now, I have an unabashed Nazi, and I had to get into his mind in order to do it. And what I try to do is to get into the people, make them as real as possible, and to bring people into lived experience so that they become sensitive to one another. I mean, I feel that in a way, that's what fiction is all about. It's about enabling people to understand the complexity of human relations, the intensity of feeling, and to understand our full humanity, you know. And so when I was talking about my children, you know, in a way, what I was trying to do is make my children alert to the full humanity, the feelings of other people, the pain that people suffer, the importance of not, you know, avoiding suffering, you know, doing what you can to make the world better. I mean, that said, my books, you know, I know that from a political point of view, I think people could be sucked into this book and think, oh, wow, it's about a psychoanalyst in Nazi Germany. Wow, that's interesting. You know, and then they'll go through it. And it's like, again, it's like there's the boiling water and there's the frog. And a lot of people are kind of clueless about what's happening for a long time. And then it gets more and more and more intense.
Right. It's like the little potato that Milda was talking about. And then, oh, wow, it's really not about the potato. It's about these real people.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, and yeah, and also the thing that's amazing to me is doing all this research about Nazi Germany. Everybody was saying the same things about Hitler that we say about Trump. It's like, like, oh, he doesn't mean what he says, or also like things like, oh my God, things are changing so fast. He's doing so many horrible things. I can't keep up. I can't read the newspaper anymore. I mean, it's just so like the world under Trump that people ultimately, I think,
there are a huge number of plays currently out that are set in Nazi Germany. There's a lot of stuff that's coming out that is bringing like different fascist regimes to the fore to hopefully learn from them.
What's interesting is this, like, there's almost like a generation, maybe a generational thing. Like, Jessica, your mother, like, I find it so interesting that, like, she had this cabinet, like this hidden cabinet behind her clothes. She really took so much care not to let you know things. And I feel like, I don't know, my kids are always like, will you stop? But I know for a fact that my parents didn't want to tell me a lot of things. Like,
that's true.
Just from, knowing what I know about them now, even though I hate them. I mean, it's like, oh, I get it. I can see what made them who they are, right? But
yeah, out in the audience, Helene was saying that she brought her son with her when they went voting, and then they would explain like the reasons why they voted the way that they did to their son as he was growing up. And I remember going to vote with my parents in Texas, and I remember them having a little argument about who was going to be the person, and then they'd pick, and then they'd go in. But they never brought me in or talked to me about it. Like, I would overhear them, if anything. So it's interesting that definitely has changed.
My family were very political. My father my grandfather was one of the founders of the Transport Workers Union in New York. So we had all this political talk all the time. The family. So that was always there for me.
My daughter is the 11-year-old, and she was very mad that she couldn't vote. She thought she deserved the right to vote right now.
Yeah, my daughter was
voting in Arkansas, and my husband took her and our kids when he voted, and I couldn't do it that day, so I did a few days later. And she's like, "Mom, have you voted yet?"
Nice. It's good when they hold us accountable to our patriotic civic duties. It's so great. Were you going to say something, Jessica?
Oh no, just I gave my kids the I voted sticker, and that's kind of as far as we got for the 1-year-old that he tried to eat it. So down for future. Yes.
My daughter was 12 in 2016, and she was exactly like your daughter, Jenny. She was so mad when she woke up. She was like, if I had voted, this would have been different, So this year it was her first year to vote, and she had the I voted sticker. She changed her registration to Ohio to try to make a difference, and she was devastated. She woke up again, like, what, but it was funny. I sent her the map of Ohio, and I said, well, look, your county is blue. Like, you did make a difference. It just didn't, like, all the rest of Ohio is red. Sorry.
Well, 8 years ago, I brought Tyler to get to the election to vote, and I actually had 2 broken ribs. And so I was standing outside with this little kid, and I couldn't move. I thought I could walk, but I was like, it was only 1 block. So I was like, I can do it, right? But then when I got out of my building, I was like drenched in sweat. And I'm like, I cannot do this. So a cop car goes by, and I'm like, yo! So they drove us over, and Tyler was so impressed by that. He's like, oh, the police took us.
Nice.
And that's the part he remembers, even though I brought him in to vote.
That's funny. You guys, our hour is up. This is the most fascinating conversation. You're so interesting. And does anybody have any last minute sort of advice to anybody who's writing something political? Is there anything that you want to say to people out there who have, let's say, small children, and they are writing something that, could be potentially dangerous, could be like any advice or experiences that you want to share about how this kind of writing has affected you or them, or how it might affect them, or how they
or does it affect what you're writing now? Like, are you setting aside what you're writing and writing something else?
Last words.
Final words.
We're ready. Those are Jenny.
I say write towards grounding, care, and compassion, right? I think those are our biggest tools that we need as people to move forward through the next years, and if right politically in a way that moves toward care and compassion.
Nice. Jessica.
I would just say write visibly. It's so important for me that my young sons see me sitting at that desk doing mommy's work. And they don't always respect my boundaries, clearly, as my interloper came in, but let them see the work and let them know that it's a real thing that their mommy and daddy can do.
That's gorgeous.
That's so important.
Stephen?
Children, of course, I don't have to deal with that so much anymore.
Well, you do have your granddaughter.
A grandson, yes.
Oh, grandson, sorry.
Yes, that's true. But he doesn't live with me, although I just spent 4 days with him, so it was great. But I don't know. I'm just thinking in terms of doing things differently. And I have to say that although I have another novel that I've started, I'm thinking of really switching. Going back to nonfiction, and there are a number of political things. I just think, what can I do? And the one thing I can do is write. And, I can't really do anything else. And writing, I don't know how much of an effect it has either, but it's something I can do. It's that little tiny effort that can be added to all the other tiny efforts.
Exactly.
That's all.
Cool. Cari?
Gosh, I mean, I think I'm maybe a little bit to the left of some other folks here. My experience in the last decade or so, I'm an anti-fascist organizer, and from that I would offer practical advice, both from my anti-fascist nonfiction and my fiction. Practical advice: subscribe to a service that scrubs your home address from everywhere on the internet, because we are polarized, and there are dangerous people out there who want to silence you, and you need to protect your children.
Great advice. Absolutely. Especially if you have kids. That's great. How do you know that the service is legit?
Because you can Google your name and address and see that things stop coming up. It takes a while. Do it in advance. Don't do it like the week before you've got a big piece about anti-fascism coming out in the Nation, for example. It takes like 10 months. It takes time to scrub all of these things. But I'm on some lists, and that's going to happen. If you're politically engaged in this climate, you're going to get on some lists that you don't want to be on. And that's just a fact. You can accept that risk for yourself, but you need to protect your children.
Good. Wow.
That's great advice.
Powerful last words. All you people who stayed with us for this entire hour and 15 minutes, we really, really appreciate you. You can donate to us at penparentis.org. We are a nonprofit, and your donations are tax deductible. You can also join us as a member, and then you get all these wonderful perks and bonuses, like seeing these salons for free, for example, next month. We do this every month. So next month, it's always the second Tuesday of the month that they're live. And then about a week later, they'll drop on YouTube, and you can watch them in playback. Hi, playback people. We're time traveling and talking to you now. Christina, can you tell us who the...
I just want to say thank you to our authors for being here. You were amazing and inspirational and so helpful. And also thank you to everyone out there watching. You're not alone. We're here. You've seen it yourself. Reach out. We're here.
For sure. And next month it's Amy Shern and
Amy Shern. Sorry, I had it written down right here. And I don't know
all of our notes just got all scrambled all over the place. Anyway, just come back here on the second Tuesday. I think it's the 10th of December, and it's our holiday salon. And as long as we're all still here, we'll still be here.
We'll be celebrating.
Yeah. So thank you guys out in Viewerland. We really appreciate you. Thank you so much, Jessica, Cari, Stephen, and Jenny. We really, really appreciated your honesty and your greatness. Congratulations again to Helen Spencer. Hooray for Taylor. We really appreciate you all. We'll see you next time.